Welcome back.
Please rise as you're willing and able for our first hymn. It's 360 in the gray book if you wish, but it's just right up there.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane, where our mission is to join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in our wider world. Or as we say in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. I want to begin, as always, by welcoming all of you here, embracing all that you bring with you, all of your uniqueness, your unique beliefs and your background and your lifestyle and your experiences and your differences, because we've all got them. And let you know that those are all embraced here this morning. This includes those who hear me say this every Sunday, as well as those who might be joining us for the first time today. And of course, those who are streaming with us. We're also very glad to have you with us today as well. So thanks to everyone for being here. I have a few things to go over this morning. So I'm going to start with Catherine Alexander, who's going to make a quick announcement, and then I'll make a few other quick announcements, and then we'll introduce a very special guest.
Just a quick note to let you know that in the back we have the board conversation that will be printed in the Sun and outline about what the Healthy Congregations is going to do when they come. So if you're interested in that, please pick up a copy in the back. Susan has one. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, also, our Children and Family Ministry team is still looking for volunteers to teach 2 Sundays a month starting October 6th through January. You can work with 3 to 5-year-olds, 1st through 5th graders, or junior high or senior high, take your pick. All classes will come with lesson plans fully prepared, so you don't have to worry about that. And we're also looking for facilitators for the Our Whole Lives, OWL program for junior high and senior high this year. That is age-appropriate sex education, which you can't get anywhere else. So we're very proud of that program and glad to offer it. If you want to sign up or have more questions, just look for the rainbow flag in the back, and someone will be happy to help you with that. Also, today is the last day to sign up for the annual women's retreat, which is happening next weekend. I don't know what they're retreating from, but if you need to retreat, definitely sign up today, because this is your last opportunity to do so. What's that? Opportunities to party. Okay, you're not retreating from, you're retreating to. That's good. That's good. And let's see, what else did I have? Seems like there was one more. Oh, yeah. Our auction announcement. Our annual community auction is coming up with a kickoff luncheon and unveiling of the items on October 13th. So there's a table in the back where you can start making your donation item today. We'll be taking donations for the next few weeks, so be thinking about what you have to offer. This is a great time for us to have a lot of fundraising as well as an important fundraiser for our congregation. So usually the kind of items might be a dinner at your place, a concert, some sort of gardening service, a tour, whatever it is that really you have to share, that you love sharing, and you might want to be able to entice others to share, would be wonderful and much appreciated. Yeah, Marianne Winifred, thank you so much for leading our music today, our singing, as well as our choir. I wanted to let you know that Deb Jackman, our music director, was here this morning, but she was not looking well, having some shortness of breath, and we finally just insisted that she go get checked out. So she's doing that, and Marianne stepped up to the plate at the last minute, and first service, you guys sounded magnificent. So thank you so much for being willing to do that. I know it was, Deb really wanted to be here, and it was hard for her to go, but thank you for helping us push her out the door just for today. Yes, thank you. Okay, now, for the moment I've been waiting for, to introduce you to a colleague of mine, a friend of mine, a friend to this congregation, the Reverend Dr. Barry Andrews. who is no stranger to us here in Spokane. He and his spouse Linda, there's Linda back there, are from Spokane. And Barry became a Unitarian in our church when he was a teenager. You're going to hear a little bit more about that later. Ours is also the first congregation that he served when he became a Unitarian minister. He's also served congregations in Manhattan, in San Diego, and is now the Minister Emeritus of the UU congregation of Shelter Rock in Manhasset, New York, where he served as Minister of Religious Education for 18 years. He's also a past president of LREDA, the Liberal Religious Education Directors Association, was chair of the Unitarian Universalist Association panel on theological education, chair of the UUA Emerson Bicentennial Committee, and chair of the UUA Curriculum Development Committee, which produced the Tapestry of Faith curriculum, which I know a lot of you who've been around for a while are more than familiar with. He's a recipient of the Angus MacLean Award for Excellence in Religious Education and the UU District of Metropolitan New York Award for Excellence in Religious Education. He's been a Merrill Fellow at Harvard Divinity School and Writer-in-Residence at the Thoreau Institute. He's also author of Thoreau as Spiritual Guide and Emerson as Spiritual Guide, and editor of anthologies on Emerson, Thoreau, Margaret Fuller, published by Skinner House Press. His latest book, published in 2017 by the University of Massachusetts Press, is Transcendentalism and the Cultivation of the Soul. I'll share a little bit from that today, along with several other very valued essays in our Association of Independent Congregations, a term that Barry gave to me. Thank you for that. After retiring from Shelter Rock, Barry and Linda moved to Bainbridge Island, Washington, where they are members of Cedars UU Church. And most recently, Barry was awarded the 2019 Dale Arnick Award for the sermon that he's going to be sharing with us today. So please welcome home now Reverend Dr. Barry Andrews. So glad to have you and look forward to hearing from you in a few moments. For now, we want to take time, just a few moments, to greet one another, as is our custom and our ritual here on Sunday morning. So please do take some time to say hi to those you know and love. This is important, so don't go yet. You got to hear this, because sometimes we have visitors and folks who are here for the first time, and you can be shy if you're shy, or if you're more extroverted, you can be extroverted, but we do want you to feel that this welcome is for you too, so please extend a hand, and somebody will be very glad to greet you. Thank you. right, and as always, there's going to be more opportunity to visit with one another during our social hour, so please stay around for that. Let's move forward now by lighting our chalice, the symbol of our faith, the symbol of our unity and our solidarity, of our openness and our inclusion, of our community and our individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world and a beacon of hope to those in need, and may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost, and cast a healthy shadow of doubt wherever it's been found. Our opening reflection today is an excerpt from Barry's book. I've not been able to read it yet, but he was kind enough to bring one to me as a gift this weekend, and so I perused it for a couple of readings to include in our service. And so this is a citation that he has written originally by Parker Palmer in his book, Let Your Life Speak. We arrive in this world with birthright gifts. Then we spend the first half of our lives abandoning them or letting others disabuse us of them. As young people, we are surrounded by expectations that may have little to do with who we really are. Expectations held by people who are not trying to discern our selfhood, but to fit us into slots. In families, schools, workplaces, and religious communities, we are trained away from true self towards images of acceptability. Under social pressures like racism and sexism, our original shape is deformed beyond recognition, and we ourselves, driven by fear, too often betray true self to gain the approval of others. We are disabused of original giftedness in the first half of our lives. Then, if we are awake, aware, and able to admit our loss, we spend the second half of life trying to recover and reclaim the gift we once possessed.
You may have noticed that we changed our banner to the fall banner, and so we are going to sing the first verse of number 73, which is our chant for the seasons. And the words are up there, but if you want to look in the hymnal, it's just the first verse. Please rise if you're willing and able.
Summertime has turned the star wheel, autumn is upon us. Summertime has turned the star wheels, autumn is upon us. Sweet the angling sun, sweet upon the air, the smell of blue mist rising. Summertime has turned the star wheel, autumn is upon us. Glorious the trees, glorious the sight of rustling, falling, falling. Summertime has turned the star wheel, autumn is upon us.
And it is now time for our story for all ages. If there are any children or anyone else who'd like to come up to the front of the church to get a closer look, you can. I'm going to stay up here today because I need the podium for my notes, but if you sit where you can see, Alex, thank you, buddy. I like those shoes, man. They're cool. Thank you. All right. Hey, we've got another couple coming up, too. Yeah. Thank you. And your shirt matches Alex's shoes, so you look good together. Yeah. So I'm going to bring out a little guest now because, as many of you know, I never can tell a story without a little bit of help. And so this is a person I think that has been becoming somewhat familiar to our congregation. You're all familiar with Professor Marty Pants. That's Pants with a Z. Yes, of course. Anyway, I noticed you're kind of looking around a lot these days. Would you mind telling me what it is you're actually looking at? I'm just doing my job. Oh, you're just doing your job. You mean you're discovering things? Of course, because you're a discoverologist. Do you remember that? Eureka! Okay. Well, do you mind reminding us exactly what it is that a discoverologist does? Of course. A discoverologist is a dipteral anthropomorph that utilizes protoplasmic extremities and ocular faculties to kinesthetically ascertain phenomenon. Pretty good, huh? Okay. Just try saying that 3 times fast. I will if you can. Okay. Well, why don't we just say that a discoverologist is somebody who does what? Discovers stuff. Okay. Isn't that what I just said? Well, kind of. But what is it that you have discovered recently? I just made the most wonderful discovery. Well, what is it that you've discovered? I've discovered the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane. I see. Well, the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane has been here since 1887. That's 132 years ago, and I know you look old, but I'm not quite sure you're that old. Yes. Well, I discovered it. You discovered it. Oh, well, you mean you just discovered it? Yes. Just now? Of course. Okay, so you discovered it while you were looking around the room? Yes. With my own 2 ocular faculties. Okay. Well, that makes sense. So I guess what you're meaning is that you've discovered the Unitarian Universalist Church for yourself. Of course. Isn't that how we all discover things? Yes. What else have you discovered? What are some of your other important discoveries recently? Well, I just discovered a new species. You discovered a new species? Now that's exciting. Are you excited, Alex? So please, yes, you are. Okay. So please tell us, what species have you discovered? What have you named them? I call them tall walkers with large heads. Tall walkers with large heads. Are you referring to the people in this room? Yes, and I discovered them. You did. Oh, and look, I just discovered a piano. And look there, I discovered lights. And I discovered windows. And I discovered a tree. Oh my goodness. And look, I just discovered some children sitting on the floor. And I discovered somebody asleep. Well, that's pretty cool. That's an odd thing for tall walkers with big heads to do. You know, Professor Marty Pants. That's Pants with a Z. Yes, Professor Pants with a Z. What I like about you is everything is a new adventure, no matter where you are or who you meet or whether you've been there before or already know them. You're always discovering new things about the people and the places you encounter. Are you just discovering that, Todd? Yes, that's Todd with 2 D's. Well, Todd with 2 D's, I must be off for my next adventure. For your next adventure, where are you going? I'm going outside. You're going outside? Yes, I hope to discover the great outdoors. Very nice. Thank you, Marty Pants with a Z, for being here. And we will now sing our children off to whatever's next. It's a mystery. But don't be afraid. Don't be afraid.
Everywhere,
We are going to have a special collection today. You may have already noticed that in your Sunday focus, but I want to take a little bit of time to introduce it to you. Anyway, this is for Transitions, a nonprofit working to end poverty and homelessness for over 1,400 women and children in Spokane, an organization we try to give to at least annually. I do want to mention that just Thursday we had a fundraiser at my home for Free and Begs. And he mentioned some stats on homelessness in Spokane. Somebody asked him what the demarcation was, and despite some of the political opposition out there trying to make some claim that most homeless folks are there because they are addicted to drugs or alcohol and are therefore somehow unworthy of help, it's their own fault, which is not true to begin with. But the reality in our community is that about 70% of our homeless neighbors are homeless due to the economic stress of these past almost a couple of decades now. So we really value having organizations like this that are dealing with the fact that most of us can't afford to live in our own country anymore, let alone be sheltered. So thanks to Transitions, they've got 5 programs in the focus that are mentioned in the focus. The Women's Hearth is a day center where women are offered safety and access to necessities from staff and volunteers. Transitions also has transitional housing programs, Miriam's House and TLC for single women and women with children, including on-site child care, which is really important if you're trying to set yourself up and establish things. And then the New Leaf Bakery Cafe, a culinary job training program, which I know many of us have catered from them. And then Transitions recently opened their permanent supportive housing program, the Home Yard Cottages, with 24 energy-efficient, low-income cottage-style homes. This is an organization that is doing it right. I know you're going to want to contribute to them this morning. If you do, please use the special collection envelope so we know where your contribution is going. And you don't have to seal that. As usual, we'll recycle it if we can. So thank you very much for your generosity. We now gratefully give and receive it because it sustains this community, but also, as you can recognize from this case, our mission to the larger world. Thank you so much. We're now going to kindle our candles of care for those who are most on our thoughts and minds this morning. And we'll begin with a candle for Deb Jackman and wishing her the best in whatever's going on. And also a candle for Warren Carpenter, who is recovering from knee surgery this past week. Let's take a moment of silence on behalf of others that you might be thinking of at this time, and as always, you're welcome to name them aloud if you'd like. Those named aloud and those embraced in our silence, and all those who are suffering in our world this hour, we hold in our community with compassion. Our meditation words today are the very first paragraph in Barry's book, again, Transcendentalism and the Cultivation of the Soul. Very first paragraph in his introduction. It's brief, but I think it says something about him and tells an important story at the same time. Even though I now live in the Pacific Northwest, I still try to visit Walden Pond at least once a year. And when I do, I make a point of hiking to the site of Henry David Thoreau's cabin there. On one occasion a few years ago, I saw a middle-aged man sitting quietly on a pile of stones near where that cabin once stood. I asked him what brought him to this spot. He said, "Walden changed my life." He'd spent over 20 years in prison for various offenses, he told me, including theft and drug possession. One of his teachers in prison taught a class on literature, including Thoreau's Walden. The teacher brought the class on an outside outing to visit Walden Pond. The book and that visit changed his life. Believing, as Thoreau wrote, there is more day to dawn, he straightened out his life. Now he was clean, he was married, and he had a good job. He'd come back to the pond to reflect on his life and the new course it had taken.
Thank you, Todd, for that fulsome introduction. And thank you for welcoming me back to this church where I first became a Unitarian 56 years ago. My reading today is from a sermon by John Dietrich. You probably have heard about John Dietrich, and you'll hear more about him in my sermon today. His first church was here in Spokane. From a sermon, Unitarianism and Humanism. The life of humanity on this planet rests in our hands. We can choose the path that we will follow, and we can follow the path that we choose if we really so desire. We can make this world what we will. We hold the key to the future in our hands. If there is ever to be a better order of human society, it will depend upon us and no one else. Think of the awful responsibility this places upon our shoulders. And in light of this responsibility, how can we keep on dallying with petty matters in religion, reading Bibles, mumbling prayers, throwing ourselves on the arms of Jesus? This is the basis of the faith which we call humanism. And this indeed is the religious need of the world. And I pray that our Unitarian churches shall ring not only with the old-time enthusiasm of our fathers, but also with the modern-time spirit, which needs only their lofty devotions and willing sacrifice to fulfill. In light of such a faith, it becomes our supreme duty in this world to hold before the gaze of men and women the vision of a perfect social order, to preach the absolute necessity of the practice of human solidarity, to hold aloft as the supreme object of our allegiance human life itself, and to turn the thoughts of humanity from the altars of the departed gods to the tasks that lie about them, and help them realize that the destiny of human life on this planet rests in their hands.
Everything a time.
That was lovely. Thank you for your ministry of song. In addition to our statement of principles, Unitarian Universalists also have a list of the sources our religious tradition draws upon. One of these is humanist teachings which counsel us to heed the guidance of reason and the results of science and warn against idolatries of the mind and spirit. This morning I would like to share with you what this means for me. In 1963, at the invitation of a friend, I attended a Unitarian church for the first time. I was a junior in high school living here in Spokane. The minister was Rudy Gilbert, a deeply thoughtful man with a rich baritone voice. He was speaking a religious language I had never heard before. Up to that point, largely at my mother's urging, I had attended Lutheran churches in the various cities we lived in. I dutifully completed the confirmation program, taken my first communion, and sung in the youth choir. But hard as I tried, I couldn't bring myself to believe the Apostles' Creed. While I admired the figure of Jesus, the rest of it, frankly, didn't make much sense to me. What I heard at the Unitarian Church, while new, did make sense. Rudy was a humanist who believed that religion should be grounded in reason and human experience. It should be concerned with interpreting the good life in terms of human values and directing our religious aspirations towards the enhancement of human life. It should be focused on living this one precious life we have to the fullest, rather than laying up store for riches in an afterlife we have no reason to believe exists. As it happened, Unitarian humanism was born here in Spokane. John Dietrich had been a minister in the Reformed Church, serving a congregation in Pittsburgh between 1905 and 1911. Although he was a popular preacher who substantially increased the size of his congregation, he came to doubt the infallibility of the Bible and the central teachings of the Christian Church. Facing a heresy trial, he resigned instead. Upon hearing of this, a local Unitarian minister suggested he apply for the Unitarian ministry. Once accepted, he was called to the Unitarian Church of Spokane. Under Dietrich's leadership, the congregation quickly outgrew their old church building and began meeting in a theater, accommodating an audience of hundreds who flocked to hear him speak. It was here in Spokane that he moved away from liberal Christianity towards what he came to call a naturalistic humanism. It was naturalistic in the sense that it embraced the findings of science, including the theory of evolution, and as a consequence denied the existence of the supernatural and the personhood of God. Dietrich soon found others in the Unitarian ministry who shared his views, and the humanist movement in Unitarianism began to spread, but not without controversy. Dietrich went to Minneapolis from Spokane in 1916. While there, he partnered with ministerial colleagues to advance the humanist position. They were met with resistance from Unitarian clergy who argued that there is no religion or morality without a belief in God. In 1921, the so-called humanist theist controversy brought out the issue into the open. At the Unitarian General Conference that year, Dietrich and his opponent, William Sullivan, former Catholic priest and minister of All Souls Church in New York City, represented 2 points of view. The matter was not resolved on that occasion, but the humanist position steadily gained ground. In 1933, a group of Unitarian ministers and university professors drafted a humanist manifesto. The manifesto consisted of 15 brief theses. These asserted that religious humanists regard the universe as self-existing and not created. that human beings are part of nature and emerged as a result of a continuing process of evolution, that religion is a product of human development interacting with the natural environment and the social milieu of the individual, that modern science has rendered supernatural guarantees of human values untenable, that outmoded notions of God must be replaced by a naturalistic understanding of the universe, and that the goal of life should be to realize one's fullest development and to find fulfillment in the here and now. The manifesto also insisted that institutions existed for the enhancement of human life and faulted both church and society for their shortcomings. Religious humanism predominated in Midwestern and Western Unitarian churches, and many churches even in the East that were founded in the 1950s and 60s. It was especially prevalent in the fellowship movement following World War II, but it was not universally adopted. Ours is a free religion, and thus we have no uniform creed or confession of faith. Many Unitarians and Unitarian Universalists, after the merger of the two denominations, were and continue to be theists of one kind or another. A number of congregations, particularly in New England, identify themselves as UU Christian churches. While humanism is enshrined in the statement of the sources of our faith, it has faded somewhat from view. There is confusion today about what humanism means. On the one hand, there is a division between the religious humanists and the secular humanists. If I may say so, secular humanists are more strident in their atheism and denial of anything suggestive of spirituality. Religious humanists, while believing that religion is a human construct, nevertheless find inspiration in the writings and teachings of many spiritual traditions. We, since I consider myself a religious humanist, find no evidence for the existence of a supernatural personal creator of the universe, but we remain receptive to transcendent experiences that reveal hidden dimensions of life. As Thoreau once said, the universe is wider than our views of it. On the other hand, there's been a proliferation in the last 30 years or so of varieties of spirituality, such as Buddhism, yoga, paganism, shamanism, and the like. In many cases, these have blended together with other religious identities, forming hybrid expressions of faith, such as, in the case of our own churches, UU Buddhists, Jewish UUs, and numerous idiosyncratic combinations. These are not necessarily in conflict with religious humanism. Buddhism, for instance, posits no kind of supreme being or eternal soul. But these other forms of spirituality do resist the notion that humanism denies their validity. During the past few years, there's been a call in our denomination to reclaim religious language, urged by those who feel that such words as grace, sin, salvation, forgiveness, and redemption continue to have meaning apart from their sectarian origins. Some have come to feel that humanism celebrates individualism at the expense of community. But I would point out that our Unitarian Universalist principles are grounded in humanism, and that, in my experience, humanists have been pillars and financial mainstays of our congregations, including this one. For these and other reasons, humanism is less prevalent today in our Unitarian Universalist churches. In American culture as a whole, religious humanism contends with those who argue that there can be no morality, no sense of absolute right and wrong without God. Many evangelical Christians believe that AIDS, natural disasters, abortion, and promiscuity are attributable to widespread atheism. According to the Pew Research Center, in 2017, there were no self-professed humanists or atheists in Congress. There may well be non-believers, but it would be the kiss of death for anyone to admit it. Apparently, it is more acceptable to be a hypocrite, a bigot, and a sexual predator than it is to be an atheist. What then does humanism mean? Secular humanists deny the existence of anything supernatural, God included. Religious humanists also see no evidence of the existence of a supreme being who created the universe and rules over it, granting favors to some, punishing others, promising everlasting life to the devout. We are atheists with respect to that notion of God and are reluctant to use the word God because it is so often understood in that way. But there are aspects of nature and human experience that, while difficult to explain, are nevertheless numinous. They have a spiritual quality. They give rise to religions and notions of deity, but they are prior to them. They are intimations of a reality that eludes any final and conclusive definition, either scientifically or theologically. And religions are examples. Let's see. Gods and religions are examples of what philosopher Alfred North Whitehead calls misplaced concreteness. It might seem contradictory to suggest that there could be such a thing as humanist mysticism. Most people associate mysticism with visions of God. But consider what essayist Scott Russell Sanders writes in his book, A Private History of Awe. I wish to follow that bright thread from my earliest inklings to my latest intuitions of the force that animates nature and mind. In world religions, the animating power may be called God, Logos, Allah, Brahma, Chi, Tao, Creator, Holy Ghost, Great Spirit, Universal Mind, Manitou, Vakantanka, or a host of other names. In physics, it may simply be called energy. In other circles, it may be known as wildness. Every such name, I believe, is only a finger pointing toward the prime reality, which eludes all descriptions. Without boundaries or name, this ground of being shapes and sustains everything that exists, surges in every heartbeat, fills every breath, yet it is revealed only in flashes, like a darkened landscape lit by lightning, or in a gradual unveiling, like the contours of a forest laid bare in autumn as the leaves fall. There's nothing exotic or uncommon about such awakenings, he continues. I am convinced they come to each of us, whatever our age or circumstances, whatever our beliefs about ultimate things. The enlightenment I wish to describe is ordinary, earthly, within reach of anyone who pays attention. Sanders is what I would call a religious naturalist. He sees no dichotomy between the perennial wisdom of religion and the story of the universe as told by science. Today, he notes, physicists and biologists no longer describe the Earth as a machine, but as a pulsing web or a dance of energy, less like a clock ticking than a mind thinking. These same luminous, animate universe, I believe, as the one described by the great mystics and witnessed by anyone who is sufficiently awake. In his sermon, A Humanist Looks at Mysticism, John Dietrich said much the same thing. At certain moments, he writes, we become conscious of the life that flows through nature and makes it like ourselves a living thing. We realize that as far back as our imagination can reach, this life force has been moving and changing and evolving into the myriad forms which make up the wonder of the world, and it is this same life force that inspires and lifts us. We are part of the creative process. Out of the vital sources of the world we have emerged, and we move along in the great river of cosmic being. We are but fragments in the boundless sweep of being, links in an infinite change of existence. We flow from the eternal source and are parts of the infinite whole. In a similar vein, physicist Alan Lightman describes in his book searching for stars on an island in Maine, a transcendent experience he had drifting on a boat at night. I lay down on the boat and looked up. The very dark sky seen from the ocean is a mystical experience. After a few minutes, my world had dissolved into that star-littered sky. The boat disappeared, my body disappeared, and I found myself falling into infinity. A feeling came over me I had not experienced before. I felt an overwhelming connection to the stars, as if I were a part of them. And the vast expanse of time, extending from the far distant past long before I was born, and then into the far distant future long after I will die, seemed compressed into a dot. I felt connected not only to the stars, but to all of nature and to the entire cosmos. I felt emerging with something far larger than myself, a grand and eternal unity, a hint of something absolute. Working as a physicist for many years, Lightman has always held a purely scientific point of view. I see no reason to believe in God or in any other unproven hypothesis. Yet, after my experience in that boat, he concludes, I understood the powerful allure of the absolutes, ethereal things that are all-encompassing, unchanging, eternal, sacred. At the same time, and perhaps paradoxically, I remained a scientist. The experiences described by Scott Russell Sanders, John Dietrich, and Alan Lightman, and many others besides, are essentially human experiences of a connection to the entire cosmos, of merging with something far larger than the self, a grand and eternal unity. They do not pit science and religion against each other. They do not require a supernatural explanation. They are their own evidence. If I prefer the term religious naturalism, it is not because I no longer consider myself a humanist, but because the word humanism seems to put humankind on a pedestal. We are and must be concerned for the welfare of humanity, but we must be aware of our shortcomings as well as our achievements as a species. We are not set apart from the rest of nature. We are part and parcel of it. We are codependent not only with the whole of nature, but also with the rest of humanity. We rise or fall together. And if there is any meaningful sense of morality, it consists in aligning ourselves with the creative forces that uphold our world and not the negative ones that threaten to destroy it. Transcendent experiences of union with these creative forces both affirm our relation to the greater whole and give us hope that the forces of life are stronger than those of death. In this sense, religious humanism is a form of this worldly spirituality, honoring both reason and science and our need for connection to one another and the cosmos that is our home. Walt Whitman was a poet of the soul and a religious naturalist. He wrote, "Having looked at the objects of the universe, I find there is no one or any particle of one but has reference to the soul. Was someone asking to see the soul? See your own shape and countenance, persons, substances, beasts, the trees, the running rivers, the rocks and sands." Like Whitman, I find the soul nowhere else but here, in this life, in this earth, in this body. And this is what humanism means to me.
Please rise as you're willing and able. We'll sing our last hymn. 313, oh, what a piece of work we are we? Strangely.
Oh, what a piece of work are we, how marvelously wrought, that we Why need to look for miracles outside of nature's law? Humanity we wonder at with every breath we draw, with every breath we draw. But give us room to move and grow, but give us air and way, and we can make a world of light out of the common clay, out of the common clay.
I leave you with these words. The life of humanity on our planet rests in our hands. We can choose the path that we will follow, and we can follow the path that we choose if we really so desire. We can make this world what we will. We hold the key to the future in our hands.
Shall